afternoon, everybody. Welcome in on the last day of July. Ready to talk a little Michigan football. We're almost always ready to talk about Michigan football, so that's not that big of a deal. But, it being the last day of July and Wednesday coming up with the practice starting and then knowing that we are a month away from kickoff, and then, it's exciting. I mean, you can't get too jacked up today about going crazy about the season coming up. But we got a few different things to talk about Michigan, what's going on right now, presently on this last day of July before we flip the calendar and get into August. I think I can say that the dog days are officially past us. When you have the players and coach in Indianapolis, and that points to it, and now here we are. So as always, we take your feedback and want to hear what you have to say. If you have any questions, you have any comments on Michigan football, leave them, and we get to them in the comment section. We will guide you along. The barbecue that Michigan took place over the weekend. I've got some thoughts on what happened at the barbecue, and then some recruiting happened over the weekend. Some, developments in recruiting, and we'll touch on that coming up straight ahead. But I started today with some predictions. Last week I told you how I did on the predictions from last year. I did all right, but it's not stopping me to come out and put some other predictions out there for you. Before I jump right into the predictions, I want to tell you that, with a month to go, you want to know what's going on with the depth chart. You want to know what's going on in practice once camp starts on Wednesday. Well, this is the place to be. That is the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com and join up. What we ask is for you to just give us a shot, and we think you will like what you see. And so we invite you to come on in, join the Maize and Blue Review today. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Okay, well, we take the feedback as it comes in, and we take hellos and go blues. And we also, we'll take some of your predictions. Jason starts it out, and he is predicting that Michigan will make it to the college football playoff final. And regardless if we win or lose the 15th game, all stats up to and including the final are included. And Jason says it's kind of like he was sitting in here looking over my shoulder. But did I release some of my predictions? He says Michigan is going to average over 42 points a game, 37 sacks. They'll come up with 16 picks and 73 touchdowns. Those are some gaudy numbers. And, when you have a team like Michigan and they're coming off a undefeated regular season last year and all the things that we all say all the time now, but they're fun to say, 2 straight appearances in the college football playoff, 2 Big Ten championships, 2 victories over Ohio State. You're going to have a lot of nice numbers to look at and to reflect on. And let's get to the first one. It's right in there with what JP was saying. I am going to predict that Michigan will lead the country in points per game on offense. Last year, Michigan was 6th with just over 40 points a game, 40.4 to be exact. The Tennessee Volunteers led the nation in scoring last year, over 46 points a game. I think that Michigan will average 45 points, even more than Jason this year, and that they will lead the entire country in points per game. When you have the kind of offense that Michigan possesses, from the quarterback to the running back to the offensive line to any of the other skill position players, I think that I don't know if folks are sleeping on Michigan's offense. They certainly aren't sleeping on the running backs, but it's fair to look at and say, just Michigan doesn't have these super wideouts. But as I have been saying all summer long, I think that the wideouts are a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. And I think when you put Colston Loveland into the mix, that Michigan is going to have explosive playmakers all over the field, and that does include their wideouts. Roman Wilson as a deep threat, as a known commodity. Cornelius Johnson finishing up the season last year strong and then coming back. And then, they do have some wild cards, and whether it's Tyler Morris or Darius Clemens, or if you want to say the biggest wild card of them all is Peyton O'Leary, who has earned a scholarship and then, flashed in the spring game for whatever that's worth. I like the Michigan pass catchers. Clearly, I like the offense, since I think that they're going to be the best offense in the entire country. So that is prediction number one. That's where I am sitting. Rob is thinking about an unbeaten regular season, but if there is a loss, it won't be to Penn State or Ohio State. Yeah, I have not made my prediction, my official prediction. I made one back in June, and I had Michigan going 12-0. I had Michigan going 13-0. I don't know, going much further than that. I get it, man. Well, you can do it. You can say, 15-0. They're going to win it all. And if you think they're going to go 13-0, why not? Have them go 14 or 15-0. I understand that. It doesn't, like, I was thinking, what if I picked Michigan to go 11-1 and get to the Big Ten championship game still, and then get to the college football playoff? Is that, that knocking them, or, is that not giving, putting your full weight behind them? Because we do know that 2 years ago, Michigan unfortunately lost to Michigan State, but they still were able to control their own destiny, and they did get to Indianapolis, and ultimately they got to the college football playoff. So, one loss. Look at Ohio State last year. They lost to Michigan, and their season crumbled right before their eyes with a number 2 overall pick at C.J. Stroud. And they're boo-hoo, and then they got a reprieve and got a chance to go to the college football playoff and damn near beat Georgia if it wasn't for that shank at midnight where, how does it go with Cinderella? The carriage turned into a pumpkin, for the Buckeyes. But look, they were that close to what was a national championship, even though they got, smacked around and punched in the face and essentially shut out of the end zone on their home field against their bitter rival. So, yeah, there's I like the unbeaten talk. I don't have that in my own prediction going through it. Account 22 likes the prediction of Michigan being number 1 in scoring this year. He just follows it up. Account 22 is talking recruiting. Detroit's own Sauce Gardner. Account 22 is saying that he was a low 3-star recruit. And you go to the Buckeye saying Michigan is in trouble with their defensive back recruiting. Ha! Yeah, I mean, we can play that game. And I will play it a little bit further later on when I talk specifically about recruiting. The truth is that Michigan, they don't have any corner recruits for 24. Is that something to, worry about? I don't know. Maybe you could, if you want to, you can. I mean, you can worry a little bit about it. Michigan would like to have had a number of different corners because they were in on them, and as recently as yesterday on a big time corner, but things aren't done yet. I think that's one good thing to remember. And then the other part is that it's different now. If this was 5 years ago, maybe it'd be a little bit more troublesome. But, Michigan takes care of business out on the field. And what's going to happen? There's going to be some flips. And I would let's just play the what if game. What if Michigan goes undefeated? Let's play that game. I'm going to tell you that Michigan's going to get a few top-rated corners. Hell, maybe the one that committed yesterday to Ohio State when he sees him getting worked over on the and smacked around again for 3 years in a row. He's going to be like, "Wait, did I pick the right team? No, I'm out." That's going to happen. So if Michigan takes care of business, like you're all thinking that they're going to, and I'm thinking that they're going to, they're not done. They're not done anyways. But I hear what you're saying. Look at have your fun if you're Ohio State with your great recruiting classes. When's Ohio State not had a great recruiting class? Hey, guess what, guys? Down there in Columbus, the real games are going to start up. We're not playing it on some grid, or with you're bored over there with recruiting. They're going to have to play real games like you had to last year against Michigan. How did that go for you when you had them spotted with 5 stars at every position? You better get some coaching. You better start toughening up. You better think about being able to get physical with a team like Michigan. Are you guys going to be in the same boat you were last year? And hey, you want to rely on back it into the college football playoff? Good luck with that. Ohio State. I just can't, Ohio State's all excited about recruiting. Yeah, go ahead, get excited about it. Paul talking hockey at the end of July. He's saying Colorado should be the start of realignment. Nebraska get back to the Big 12. Yeah, I wouldn't have any problem if Nebraska left the Big 10. It hasn't felt like they're a Big 10 team. And if they left, I don't think anybody would be sitting around going, "Oh, it was so awesome having them in the Big 10." So if they wanted to go, they could. Now, one thing that I know, Trev Alberts and the rest of Cornhusker Nation, and certainly the top level of the president and the athletic director, they love the Big Ten. The Big Ten, even though they don't cash in football and basketball and national championships, the Big Ten is cashing in when it comes to the bag. They've got the biggest bag, and so Nebraska, and they cut it up equally. So while Nebraska, hasn't had any success in basketball or football, I don't know about other sports. You could tell me about that, but Nebraska's winning a national championship when it comes to receipts because they are, piling up the money by being a Big Ten member. Here's Antoine. It's great to see Antoine on a Monday. Antoine is saying Michigan is not in trouble with DBs. We just got a lot of inexperienced people, but we got talent. Yeah, I'm not thinking. I'm with you, Antoine. I don't think Michigan is in trouble. And what have we learned over the last year? Ohio State fans, you may not have learned this. Like, recruiting's fine. It's fun to get excited about recruiting. You got to keep those guys. You got to get them committed. And then you've got to develop them. Then you got to get them out on the field because the transfer portal, which Michigan hit for 7, 8, 9, 10 guys this year, Michigan will go to the transfer portal. You say, boy, you could just rely on the transfer portal. Yeah, Michigan can rely not just on the transfer portal. They can rely on also their model with NIL that has been working pretty well right now. And then, supplemented by the transfer portal and then the development of the players that they are bringing in. And as you see, they go 25, 30 and how they're going about recruiting. The game has changed. So you want to sit around and be like, well, Michigan doesn't have any corners. That really spells, no, that doesn't really mean, they don't have any corners right now. That doesn't mean that they're not going to end up with any. And again, do it on the field. I predict it will happen. And everybody will be happy about the cornerback position. Even if they don't land one, but I would think that they still would. I would put my money on Michigan being able to get a corner or two, a highly rated corner or two. whether it's flipping them or if there's still someone out there that end up being here, coming back with Michigan. So that's how I'm looking at it as we go through this. Let's get to prediction number 2. Prediction number 1, if you're just joining us, Michigan will lead the country in points per game. Take that one out there and do with it what you will. Prediction number 2, J.J. McCarthy will be a top 5 pick in the 24 NFL draft. There are a lot of people that are as high on J.J. McCarthy as me, but I don't think there's anybody that's higher on J.J. McCarthy than me. I thought after last year, looking at all the quarterbacks, watching all of college football, seemingly every game and every prospect and looking at him, and I thought, I'm not trading J.J. McCarthy for anybody. Maybe Caleb Williams. And then people were like, you're crazy, or what are you talking about? It's a little bit of Maize and Blue review, kind of homerism there. And I was even had to take a step and to kind of be like, so I really feel like this. And yes, I do. And I think the kind of season that McCarthy will have, I think that, right now, I think he's the second best quarterback in college football. I also think he's the second best quarterback that is geared towards the NFL draft. And I know people love the Drake and others. This is my rankings. This is how I see it. And this is my prediction. J.J. McCarthy will be a top 5 pick in the 24 NFL draft. I believe that. That's why I put it down. Okay, so I've got 6 or so, count 22, pointing out that Odin is a 4-star DB. We're talking specifically about corners, account 22. But yeah, if you say DBs, you are correct with what you are writing there. But that's it. I mean, every time there's a Michigan OSU, and I know Oregon was in there, but Michigan OSU battle, after it's done, you do feel like, they've played a game a little bit. So you have to crank everything back up, and start talking about, the Buckeyes again and how you're feeling about them on the last day of July. Dave would bet against an unbeaten season only because it is numerically unlikely. You're right about that. The chances of going undefeated for any team, you think about going undefeated, likely not going to happen. If you look at Michigan, you got 97. Before that, I mean, they had some ties. You go back, some of those seasons in the 70s. I think you got to go all the way back to, 48, 49. It doesn't happen very often. So if you just looked at Michigan, you'd say, are you really thinking they're going to go undefeated again? So yeah. But the part about knowing the roster, knowing the personnel, knowing where things are at right now, is it a good bet to say an unbeaten season? An unbeaten season, talking about 15-0. As much as I like Michigan this year and everything else, if you said, hey, would you, I don't know if betting your life sounds crazy. Would you bet betting everything you had? That also sounds crazy. But would you bet 15-0, or would you take all the other records? If you're, I know if you're just a big Michigan fan, you'd say, yeah, I'm going undefeated. And I like people that say that, 15-0. But yeah, you right. Do you want to just put on your Michigan shirt and just say, go blue, man. Let's go blue. Or, you want to feel like, Dave, and say, hey, really the chances are. But, Dave, that's kind of what's like being a Michigan fan. And right now, and being a fan of a team, it's like, who really cares about stats and numbers? And the way things are going right now and how you feel about Michigan, I wouldn't stop anybody from, going and putting all their chips right in the middle and saying, I'm rolling with Michigan this year all the way. Gary, how many inspections did Michigan have last year? I think he means interceptions. Off the top of my head, I don't know. If there was a category though that Michigan wanted to get better in was takeaways. So I bet if you look, you would probably not have as many as you would like. So they want to get more, late in the season. What, Will Johnson, did he have two in the Big Ten championship game? So, there it is. When it comes down to interceptions, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, and I don't know exactly how many they had off the top of my head. That is one of the problems. Maybe, I can get a producer. The producer could sit off to the side. They could look that kind of thing up. You could be the producer. You out there could check that while we're playing, and you could see, here's Jason asking you to receive just like that. Michigan last year with averaged 40.4 points per game, 37 sacks, 14 picks, 68 TDs. And so if we are comparing that to, let's see just how bullish Jason is. I have to go back just to see how bullish he is. I'm interested. I think he's bullish. I think everybody is. So here it is, over 37 sacks, 14 picks. He's thinking up it by a couple points a game, up it in the sack total, up it in the interceptions, up it in the total touchdowns as well. So JP is putting them out there, and he is in on everything. There you go. Thanks. Thanks, Jason. Thank you so much. Let's see. All right. Account 22 likes my JJ prediction, and there are those statistics. That's right. The defense that we have there. Account 22 sees 40 sacks this year. 40 sacks is doable. It could happen with U of M. Glenn, the number one Facebook fan. Always great to see him. Let's see what Wolverine fan 2 is saying. Michigan plays against Cade McNamara for the Big Ten title, then Joe Milton for the national title. Michigan then moves to the forefront and becomes known as QBU. Sorry, I was dreaming and I just woke up. Well, I'm picking Minnesota in the West, and I know not many people are, but Iowa, I could certainly see that. So Cade, that would be a, great story. I mean, who else? I mean, looking at the Wisconsin. No, I mean, if you could just pick what would be the best story for Michigan going to the Big Ten championship game, that would be it. And then now you're looking for another great story if Michigan played and went up against Joe Milton and Tennessee. That would be a great story. Wow. And, how quickly things have changed. Like Jim Harbaugh, man, I can't believe, all the quarterbacks. And then all of a sudden, all these quarterbacks are out there. Yeah, there would be something. Wouldn't it, Richard? It would be. Richard is saying a natty season will have lots of records. That's it. Lots of records this season. It would happen. It's like last year when you look at the numbers and, sort of say, hey, where's Michigan? And if you have them eclipsing them, Michigan was undefeated rolling into the college football playoff. You have done well in a lot of the numbers. Remember tracking them through, points per game, points allowed. 1 point, Michigan's in the top 3. They're in the top 3 in points allowed. They're in the top 3 in points scored. I mean, everything was great. It was a great season up until the loss against TCU. That was not so great. Okay, let's continue on. Prediction 1, Michigan will lead the country in points per game. Prediction 2, J.J. McCarthy will be a top 5 pick in the 24 draft. I'm going to stay with the NFL draft. I have said for now a couple months that, and you hear a lot of people talking about Michigan. Michigan's got the best running back room in the country. Every analyst that I hear talk about Michigan points to Michigan's running back room and saying that they have the most, they have the deepest, the best running back room in the country. And I agree with all of the people that say that. My only difference is I think Michigan has the number one running back in the country, and I think Michigan has the number two running back in the country. They have the two best, not just the best running back room, they've got the two best, number one and number two, in terms of backs in the country. And I think that that will be proven out as the season plays along. And then I think when the NFL draft plays out, that you will have both Edwards and Corum going 1 and 2 with running backs in the NFL draft. And everybody will be saying, wow, Michigan really did have a loaded running back room. They had the best two backs in the country. And you can say the Good Afternoon Michigan Football podcast had been on that for a year. Rob likes it, I think. Richard likes it as well. Prediction number 3. Let's recap. Michigan will lead the country in points per game. J.J. McCarthy will be a top 5 pick. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards will be the top 2 backs drafted in the 24 NFL draft. Here's prediction number 4. Jalen Harrell, number 32, will lead Michigan in sacks this year. He's an edge. He's a little bit underrated by Michigan fans. I think he's a little bit underrated in the Big Ten. I think he's a little bit underrated nationally. I think Harrell will blow up. He had 3.5 quarterback drops last year. Mike Morris led the Wolverines with 7.5. I think Harrell will lead Michigan. Now, if you wanted to come to the table and say, I think it's going to be McGregor, I think that Braden McGregor, and I can understand that. I mean, that's a fine selection. You might say Josiah Stewart is just going to be a sack master for Michigan, and he'll get double-digit sacks. You know, am I going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about? No, you might know what you're talking about. And if you watch the Coastal Carolina film of Stewart and you see him, he is a rush edge. I mean, he can get to the quarterback. I mean, that without seeing him this year, I saw him in the spring game and then watched that tape of him at Coastal Carolina. He looks like a sack master. He's got one thing on his mind, and it's about getting to the quarterback, and he's been very good at it. And he was, you know, I'll say it again, and some people are like, I don't care about the spring game. It all fits in as a piece of, it's not everything, but it's certainly not nothing. And he looked great. I mean, if everybody played like it was like the spring game, Michigan's going to not let up a point, and they're going to score 60 points a game. Like I'm not expecting them to do all that. I'm not expecting that. But Kenneth Grant, he also looked great in the spring game. So did Derek Moore. Maybe you'd say Derek Moore, which would be a great pick. I like Harrell. I think he's going to be the starter. I think he's going to get the most snaps. And I think in the end, even with a lot of competition at edge and a healthy rotation, I do believe that it's going to be Harrell who ends up leading Michigan in sacks. And you know what? AJ is exactly right. Stewart looks unbelievably fast coming around that corner, and he sure does. And, look at Count 22's in on Stewart as well. It is. It's a really good pick. What are you going to do? Just pull a name out of the hat, one of 4 or 5 guys, and you can feel good about it. Like I said, if we were doing just pick a name out of a hat and you win $100, whoever gets the most sacks, and the name came out and it said Braden McGregor, I'd be like, I got a pretty good shot. But I would hope that it would say Harrell, and I would feel like, hey, because that's my pick. Let's read some more of the feedback before I get to some more of my predictions for the upcoming season. That's what you get for listening to a Buckeye, Account 22, dealing with Ohio State fans. That's never, that can go sideways really quick. Luca is talking about Michigan airing it out. As long as we start to air it out more and preserve the running backs, I am happy plus win. Luca, I think you're going to be happy. Get happy. Harrell and Jenkins for the tie. Richard, who goes right against one of my I don't know, hang-ups. I don't like ties in sports. Richard is predicting a tie. Pick one. It's all right, because it could happen. I was reading about Chris Jenkins today. If you would ever have thought like this writer hates us, this writer is completely biased, he's a Sparty, or he's a fill in the name, national writer, local, whatever. Bruce Feldman writes for The Athletic. I read a story today about Michigan and Bruce Feldman, who was in Indianapolis, and he talked to Harbaugh, and he talked with a bunch of college. He talked to Todd Blackledge. He was Joel Klatt, Jake Butt. I mean, he was talking with all of these different college football analysts, and you come away with reading that with Bruce Feldman, you're like, Bruce Feldman loves Michigan this year. I mean, he just loves them. And he doesn't just love Michigan, like he doesn't just love J.J. McCarthy. He loves the offensive line. He loves the defensive line. He loves the talent overall. He loves Hart. I mean, he wrote a I love Michigan story. And you could say, wow, I could see other people saying, well, this guy's a total Michigan homer. Michigan's really good. But it just reminded me, because Jenkins, who came in as a light, I think 3-star, and light on the stars, and then light as somebody that you think might be a defensive tackle. I think he weighed, 235 or whatever. But yeah, his dad was a defensive tackle. He's grown into the position. And then he had a quote from Harbaugh, and I'll paraphrase it, but it was basically like, Jenkins is going to be a top 5 pick, or a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. That's Harbaugh making a prediction. I was like, wow, Jenkins. I hadn't seen anybody, but then, there was a lot of that kind of, high, praise for a number of Michigan players. And they had, and if you really follow recruiting, which I know a lot of you do really close, there's a part about like no team that has won a national championship, and I don't know how far you go back. You maybe have to go back 50 years or however long that they've had rankings. No team has won the national championship that's finished outside the top 5. So you're like, you got to finish in the. I think that's what the line is about recruiting. And then they had their recruiting guru Feldman was saying, look, you gotta recruit. In Michigan, they just have not, come up with the blue chip 5 stars. And Feldman was making the argument against, like, look, Michigan's also retaining some of these players. Michigan's also going to the transfer portal, and they are also taking and developing the players that were 3s and making them in the 4s and the 5s. You like Michigan, you all do. You'll want to see that story by Feldman, because so many of the scribes out there, you feel like, are completely against Michigan. They're biased against Michigan. Feldman seems like he's the exact opposite of that. So check that out. I'll put some of those blurbs here and there this week from Feldman. It reads like it's coming from the Michigan football office. JP is saying if JJ stays, Dono stays. The character and loyalty will stand strong. I would like to see Dono stay and be a featured back and not under Blake's wing or coattails, to be honest. Well, sure. I mean, there's a way that JJ and Donovan Edwards stay. There's, tons of money, name, image, and likeness wise that Michigan can come up with. Meanwhile, if JJ McCarthy is going to be a top 5 pick, he's not staying. I mean, he can't. You can't, turn down. Doesn't matter how much NIL's out there. You can't turn down 30, guaranteed if you're JJ. And if you're a running back, the clock ticking, and if you, who knows, you start talking about the stats or stat it out, and I think Edwards is going to be a top 50 pick. I think Blake Corum is going to be a top 50 pick. I don't think if Donovan Edwards is going to be a top 50 pick that he's going to stay around. I don't think Michigan can come up with the kind of money. What is that? 7-8 million, depending on where you go in there. Are they going to be able to come up with that? Probably not. And as a running back, you want to be able to get in there and you're going to get that contract. So maybe, I mean, there's ways that it can happen, but we got to let that play out. We'll see. We'll let it all play out. We will let it all play out. Let's see. Josiah just transferred. Or number 18, Colston Loveland. Who's better, Josiah Stewart or Colston Loveland? Well, I don't know. We're talking about two sides of the ball here. Who is better between Colston Loveland and Josiah Stewart? I'm going to say Colston Loveland. Unless there's an 18 that I'm forgetting about. But, go ahead and let me know about that if I did. Well, let's see. Richard talking about the guys behind Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. It's a fun game. I'll admit it. I play it myself. Yeah. Ben Hall looked great. Again, go back to the spring game. Stokes went through it last year. Coughed up the ball in that game, got in the doghouse. He must have been coughing it up in practice too, because you don't just cough it up in a game if you've been securing it in practice and pretty much, lose your spot. So we'll see. Ball security, that's going to get you on the bench quicker than anything. Stokes still in the mix. Yeah, Hall's in the mix. Richard loves the depth at running back because one day he's talking about Ben Hall. The other day he's talking about Cole Cabana. And I want to talk about Cole Cabana for a second. I live in Dexter, Michigan, outside of Ann Arbor, in Washtenaw County, where Ann Arbor is. On the way out of Dexter, they have this billboard, this dentist. The dentist has got a billboard going out and he's got one coming in. He's got both of them for as long as I've been here for, I think, 10 years now. A little bit longer maybe, but he's got the billboards. And he'll picture high school kids on the billboard. You can tell they're wearing the Dread Dot stuff. Right now, he's got Cole Cabana. I like it's got to be an NIL deal, right? There he is. You drive by and you see Cole Cabana. He's flashing his pearly whites, and there it is. I like it. The coach likes McGregor too. Brian checking in. More scoring in the first half will definitely help the sack numbers and interceptions. Cabana in the pass game. Yeah. Here's a prediction from Steve coming in. 2 1,000-yard rushers and 2 1,000-yard receivers. I don't know. Can that be done? I mean, if you're going to lead the country in scoring, maybe. Antoine weighing in on OSU and how stupid they are. When Donovan was running the ball, I knew they were going to be stripping the football, and yet none of those dummies did it. A name calling. Usually I don't like that, but just go ahead and allow it today. What do you say? Here's the poster formerly known as Andres saying, is it the season yet? Well, we're a month away. Wednesday, practice starts, so we're getting pretty close. There's a couple more shots at OSU. Another shot at OSU. I mean, look at a lot of shots coming to OSU. OSU just has to take those. They're sitting around underneath the table, all excited about, some of these recruits that they're going to get that are all going to leave once they lose to Notre Dame and lose to Michigan for 3 years in a row. So, enjoy it while it lasts. I I can understand that. Really, I enjoy things while they last. Stay present. It's what the meditation app is always telling me. So for our Ohio State friends, yeah, don't get caught up in looking at November when you're going to lose to Michigan. Just pull out the recruiting rankings and just hold them and just sit there and just enjoy yourself, because that's what you've got right now. Enjoy it, because it's not going to be there in November. Okay, 2 more predictions to go. Number 1 was Michigan will lead the country in points. McCarthy will be a top 5 pick. Corum and Edwards will be the top 2 running backs drafted in the 24 NFL draft. Prediction number 4, Jalen Harrell will lead U of M in sacks. Let's get to kind of an odd prediction. It's kind of a specific prediction, and it involves Will Johnson, Michigan corner. Will Johnson will have not 1 pick six, but at least 2 pick sixes for Michigan this year. 2 pick sixes. I'm betting the over. If it's a half on a pick six, I'm way over. If it's 1.5, I'm over on Will Johnson. I think Will Johnson will have a couple pick sixes for Michigan this year. And I think, I know the teams are going to be targeting Josh Wallace on the other side, or maybe it'll be Jaden McBurrows. Maybe it will be Amarian Walker. Maybe it'll be a group of those, or it'll be Sandristo. Bad move if they're going to target Sandristo, but once in a while they'll throw over there to Johnson. He's going to pick some off and take it the other way, and then they're going to be staying away from number 2. If I knew that they were going to test him and throw at him all the time, I would pick more than 2 pick sixes, but I think he'll get one, and then I think he'll get another, and then teams are going to be like, okay, that's it. We're not throwing. When you get a blanket, we're not going to throw at Will Johnson. Antoine giving us all a piece of advice. Don't listen to the national people about Michigan. They know nothing. Wow. They don't. Well, I mean, some of them. Let's see. Antoine taking a shot at some of these national people. They have someone look up the stats. Well, just for a second, Antoine, some of the national guys, they do Michigan games. So they get to talk to the coordinators. They're talking with insiders like, some that you might enjoy here on the Maize and Blue Review or elsewhere. They're talking with them at the football building. They're at the games. In many cases, almost in all the cases, these people have been in college football their entire lives. They played the game, and they know they're their peers. So, don't immediately just dismiss national people because they're national people. That would be a mistake. I think, dismissing people because they went to Michigan State, well, I give everybody a chance to see what it looked like. I understand you dismissing people immediately. As much as people dismiss Desmond Howard on game day because he is so positive and always is, biased about Michigan, people will do the same thing with Kirk Herbstreit. That's the world we live in. That's college football. So I'm not going to tell people, maybe you should listen a little bit. I don't know. Herbstreit has got 2 strikes against him. So, you do most of the time, he's pretty legit. But you do, especially when he's talking about Michigan and waving a white flag, or if there's a coaching vacancy, you got to watch. Because old Herbie, he could be 3 strikes, he's out. And for many, it was Ohio State, and you are out. Count 22, going back and thinking about the career of Okie. Yeah, Okie, too bad that he okie dokied out. I liked Okie. You know what I mean? I think everybody else did too. Oh. Okay. Oh, so I'm going back. Do I think that Josiah Stewart will be better than Yabi Okie, who was with Michigan last year? Now I got it. Well, Okie was good. Okie was good. I think they've got the same kind of, at least when I'm looking at, I feel like the same kind of profile. Exceptional athlete, line up. There's the quarterback, straight line, boom, go get him. Go sack him. Plant him in the ground like a tulip. I think both of them are, and I would feel like, at least right now, uh, sack specialist. And so very similar. So is it going to be easy for me to say, oh yeah, Stewart? I don't know. Like I think that again, similar profiles. I would have to look back. I know Okie was flashing and had a few sacks, but so if I'm going to stat it out, how many did I think? Well, Harrell's going to lead him. I think McGregor is more of a, from what I've seen, he might be able to get to the quarterback, but I like him more of the pass breakups. Man, Derek Moore and Stewart, I can see those guys getting a half dozen apiece. 6 for Moore, 6 for Josiah Stewart, 3.5 for McGregor, and 8 for Harrell. Start adding them up. Get them in there. Maybe getting some from the interior defensive line. Let's go. Rob getting into a little media bias. He says ESPN covering SEC now and no Big Ten. Expect nothing but pro SEC even more. Yeah, I think that if you're watching ESPN, that's in the back of your mind that these guys are in bed with the SEC, that they're biased against the Big Ten. So anybody these guys opening their trap, don't listen to them because they're you can't trust them. Yeah, I think that's what's going to go on. That's what's happening. Certainly, if you're a Michigan fan. All right, let's get back to. I got another prediction. I do. I've got one more. And it is prediction number 6. And it's Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson will have double-digit touchdowns for Michigan this year. He had 6 total last year. He had 2 rushing, 4 receiving. I will think he will get to double-digit touchdowns. If you look at this and you say, you're kind of a Roman Wilson fan. I'm guilty of that. I am a Roman Wilson fan. I think if you look back to last year, though, and you think, like, how many bombs did J.J. McCarthy throw to Roman Wilson where Roman had 2, 3, 4, 5 steps on the secondary? 3 or 4? Like, he connects. He could have had another 2, 3 easily last year. You're already, sitting right there at close to double digit. If he connects, if JJ puts the ball on him on half of those that he was open for last year, and he doesn't have that terrible, what do you call the one taken off the board, he would have had a hat trick against TCU. He'd have had 10 last year. So that is, I don't want to tamp down my own, like, oh, that's a pretty easy prediction. I don't know if it's easy or not. I am saying that he could have had that last year, and I do think that he'll get it this year. Roman Wilson. Trying to knock my own predictions. Or, hey, that's a real easy one. I don't know if any of them were real easy. But those are at least a half dozen of my selections. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's get to some other stuff here. And that has to do with the barbecue and recruiting overall. First, I want to tell you folks, if you are out in Holly, hopefully you guys stop by Reno's hot dog stand and told them that Good Afternoon Michigan Football sent you. And you'll be like, I'm going back wherever these guys are at. Well, your next chance to see the guys is at Northville Winery and Brewery. August the 10th. They will be there, and go on out. They got music. They got hot dogs. Obviously, they have beverages as well. You will not be disappointed. So go see Reno and tell them that Good Afternoon Michigan Football sent you. Okay, the U of M barbecue. What is my biggest takeaway? I have 3 takeaways. One, I have the 2 5-stars from the 25 class, the quarterback out of Belleville, Michigan, Bryce Underwood, who was down in LSU, and it was like, Michigan fans didn't like seeing that, even though it was, the Bayou brouhaha down there, their big recruiting weekend. Underwood was down there, made everybody like, yeah, but this is Michigan's big weekend. But he showed up on Sunday, and he showed up with another 5-star, David Sanders Jr., big offensive tackle prospect who is out of Providence Day in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yes, the same high school as Jaden Davis, the same high school as Shannon Goodwin. This I would put in the good news category. Doesn't mean that they're committing to Michigan, but it means that they're in with a chance. I think that people that worry about name, image, and likeness, completely understandable. I also think at this point, if Michigan didn't have, I don't want to say something up their sleeve, or if they weren't going to be competitive, if they weren't just making a pitch like, hey, sure, everybody's offering you millions of dollars. And for these two, I think it is. I have Underwood and Sounder, he's a top 5 guy. These guys are going to be getting offered at least $1 million if they ever put their hand on the ground for whatever the school they're going to. If Michigan is playing, saying, just be transformational and come to us, I would say that they're wasting their time. That Michigan shouldn't recruit Sanders Jr. or Bryce Underwood if Michigan doesn't have a pitch that could compare to somebody getting $1 million signing bonus up front. So I don't know. Say I'm encouraged that Michigan. I think that they're at least. I don't know if they're dipping their toe in. If they're now with what happened with this year, they're saying, hell, if we're going to get dinged, why don't we just get dinged like everybody else and play this game? I don't know exactly, but my thought here is that they shouldn't waste their time with a top 5 guys if they're not, coming up with some sort of at least, wink, or if they haven't changed, things will have to change a little bit. You can say, well, what about Jaden Davis? There's the point. There you go. Maybe Michigan is pinning their hopes on these 2 guys being like, forget the $3 million I'm going to get offered. I'm just going to go to Michigan. Maybe it'll happen. It'd be nice. It would be pretty cool. All right, let's get some of these feedback in that's happening. Detroit Lions with the Fonz. I know his name says Paz, but let's call him what it says there. Paz is saying not Aaron Scott, but I kind of saw it. Yeah, I think Paz that everybody kind of saw it as well, but people were still into the recruitment of Aaron Scott Jr. and Woodson was trying his tail off, and to see him up there, on his dad's birthday, picking Ohio State, it wasn't a huge shock, but what else do you want to say about Aaron Scott? That happens. And people are coming back to what I was saying earlier. Richard saying he predicts a 5-star receiver recruit before January. Well, what's Gatlin Bear announcing? Isn't he a 5-star? Pretty soon. You might get a 5-star. Richard, you might get one before, before the season starts. Opaz is saying the Big Ten is soft. We need to get more competition before the SEC. Yeah, I'm not so really worried about that. The SEC is kind of soft too, besides, 2 or 3 teams. I'll put, I know they just got Oklahoma and Texas, but I'll put the Big Ten East division on up against any division in college football. That includes the SEC, where Alabama is, where Georgia is on their side. Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan are better than any of those teams, any of those divisions, while we still have them in their last year. So let's not like bow down and act like the SEC is so superior and all of that. It's evening up a little bit. So, little disagreement there. Luca's making a prediction. I make predictions. People are making predictions. Luca's predicting at least a flip, at least one big time recruit. Yeah, Michigan's going to lose a couple and they're going to flip a couple. I think if we were putting our money down, I would say Michigan will lose 2 and flip 2. You want to say, oh, I think they'll flip a couple more, but they won't lose any. Hey, you're a fan. That's fine. I'm just guessing. Westro. Or is that like Westro, like in Game of Thrones? Westros, 7. Hard to know how often receivers are beating coverage when the broadcast doesn't give you the all 22 view. Yeah, well, sometimes you can tell, but yeah, I mean, how often do you get the all 22 view? Do you have to pay? I think you could pay for that. I know you can in pro football to get an all 22. I don't know. Can you pay a premium service to get the all 22 in college? Go to the game. You get the all 22. Sit in the top row at Michigan. That's it. Thoughts on the food at the barbecue? Well, that's one of my other takeaways. I was going to put the picture up here. There was a recruit that put a picture of his food at the big house. And this kid, I think, what's he going to be, a junior in high school? So I don't know. He's 16 years old. So when I'm thinking barbecue, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to see some pulled pork. I'm going to see some ribs. I'm going to see some sides. And my mouth is going to start watering. And I'm going to be like, that's a barbecue. Meanwhile, this kid who came in, he posted a picture of the most pathetic looking hot dog. It looked like you took the hot dog and rolled it on the grill for like maybe 30 seconds. And then you kind of pulled your bun apart and put it in the middle. It looked like something of a 5-year-old. Nothing against this kid, but he had a bare hot dog with a pulled apart bun sitting there next to some chicken fingers that, he can only do so many things with chicken fingers. He had some chicken fingers and he did have some mac and cheese, but that was it. And he was like, and maybe a little cookie or something. And he's like, hey, here's the big house fair. And everybody looked at it like, oh my God, that's terrible. Well, it's not exactly what, what I was picturing when I thought about the Michigan big time barbecue. Michigan's got 100 places within a mile that you could go and get great barbecue. Then we got 100 chefs I could get out there and cook. But the kid had no barbecue on the table. But look, just because a 16-year-old, the only thing that could have been worse, they did a hot dog with just a little ketchup on it. And everybody like, oh my God. But I don't know. But I don't want this kid. I don't think that the kid should commit to Michigan. The kid using a bare split hot dog with a couple chicken fingers at a barbecue, bad choice. Go somewhere else. Unless your palate changes and you become a man. Maybe things will drop for him. And then somebody will give him a rib and they'll be like, whoa. And then next year's barbecue, he's like, I missed the boat. That was my thought on the food. But man, right in Ann Arbor, they got great barbecue. But go to Ricewood. Chocolate up for Ricewood, man. Put that barbecue out there. Put that on a plate. People be like, whoa, what's that? So that's my thoughts on the food, Luca. I don't want that kid that posted a picture of his plate. It was pretty sad looking, pretty pathetic. Michigan's NLI was just like that barbecue plate they served up. Well, it was not a very transformational looking plate. I'll give you that. They could have said, hey, you want to come on down to the barbecue? And it showed a picture of that. I said, no, thanks. But what are you going to do? Wait till August the 5th is what you're going to do. That's when the Bear commits. Anybody watching the Bear on Hulu? I've watched about a half dozen of the Bear, and it's good TV. I like it. Let's see if this is a little bit of hyperbole or not from the Opaz. He says that Bryce Underwood, with 4, take a look at this, eyes, might be the greatest high school prospect of all time. Okay. Fact or fiction? Opez? I'm going to say fiction, but not so far off. I mean, Dante Moore just 2 years ago, he seemed like, so you just had one of the greatest prospects of all time 2 years ago. And now you're talking about getting another one. But if you're talking about state of Michigan high school prospects, I would say yes. I would say there is Bryce Underwood. There was Dante Moore. Who else would even be in that category of a Michigan quarterback? Drew Henson back in the day, certainly, but you have to go back to the 20th century. So it's making it sound like I'm, knocking on. I'm not. I mean, he's tremendous. But when I look across, the entire country, and then you're saying greatest prospect of all time, I don't know, a little bit. I think I'm going to say a little bit on the high side on that one. Rob saying Underwood's a can't miss. Yeah, well, see, that's where you get like he's great. He's one of the greatest high school Michigan prospects of all time, one of the highest rated of all time, and certainly, however long the list is of decorated 5-star high school quarterback prospects, he's in there. So he's going to be very high. Right? So we sit right now, the number 1 in the class of 24. But when you're saying he's a can't miss, that's where when you take the last 100 top 5 prospects, I would bet that over half of the 5-star prospects, the last 100, half of them have missed. So the hit rate on can't miss guys is less than 50%. So I do not think that Bryce Underwood is a can't miss. So, but recruiting, you do get a little bit of hyperbole. Greatest prospect of all time. Can't miss. Maybe I'll go watch him next year, which I'm hoping to do, and I'll come back and say, this kid's can't miss. He is. I'm going to go back and I apologize to Rob J. and Opaz. These guys were right. This guy's the greatest thing ever. And maybe. All right. JP keeps an eye on what's going down in Athens, and he says you got another dog getting pulled over for going 90 and a 70, and he had an active warrant for his arrest. Hey, Kirby's like, that ain't nothing. We're get him right back in there, get him up. You got to pay his fine, and we'll drive him around, get him out there. When does, maybe he's going to miss a game or two. Kirby doesn't need, you start looking at that schedule. That's why it's easy to put, the Georgia, if you're doing a preseason poll, they're the defending 2-time champs. So that's going to mean something. The way they recruit, and they don't have their starting quarterback, but you also know the way they recruit and everything. But then you just look at the schedule and you think, who's beating Georgia? They don't play Alabama. Who are they losing to? Maybe Alabama in the championship game. But then if they're undefeated and they go into the SEC championship game, they'll be in the college football playoff anyways. So they don't need whoever this guy is until November. He can drive just, hopefully he doesn't kill anybody. You hear almost nothing of the media, yet they smear Michigan. I don't think there's been any I mean, there's been a few, but I don't think there's been a smear job towards Michigan. I don't believe that. I believe there's a lot of people that are protecting Michigan about their the coach getting suspended. There's a lot of people that are chalking it up to sandwiches or whatever else. Um, I don't see the smear job. I mean, like you're sitting around listening to Ohio State fans or something like that. But I mean, for as many Michigan fans as think they're getting jobbed and talking about cheeseburgers, there's probably as many that's talking about, the heinous cheating going on in college football. It's somewhere in the middle is what's going on there. Cameron says we need to land a 5-star recruit with this coaching staff. Well, you got Jaden Davis. I don't know. Traditionally, Michigan is getting, I don't know, they get one. They didn't get one last year, right? But they got one the year before. I don't know. Technically, I don't know. I guess whether you could argue composite or whatnot. JJ McCarthy was a 5-star, but he wasn't universally looked at as the 5-star. So, do they need a 5-star for 24? I'm going to say no. No, they don't. And I like 5. It's not like I don't want to see them get one. I'd like to see them get 2. As much as I'm over here talking about, let's wait and see, tap the brakes on Underwood about him being one of the greatest quarterback prospects of all time nationally. I want to see Michigan get Underwood. And as much as I'm talking about, I don't know why they're recruiting Sanders because, teams are going to be offering him millions of dollars. I still want them to recruit Sanders and land him. Rob's scared about Underwood. His dad saying how much he enjoyed the LSU visit and food and friendly people. Well, don't get too scared. I mean, Underwood, there's a long way to go. There's a lot of barbecue and a lot of places to visit. So Cameron's saying that he's not going to go to Michigan unless we win the Natty. I don't agree with that, Cameron. I see plenty of scenarios where Underwood, JJ goes out and has a fabulous year. Michigan goes out, has a fabulous year. Even though they want to like talking about it, Michigan could have a fabulous year and still not win the national championship. Michigan could have a fabulous year and still not make the the championship game. Could Michigan have a fabulous season and not get to the college football playoff? Probably not. So could I see Michigan beating Ohio State again, winning the Big Ten again, losing in the college football playoff, and then Underwood's going to be like, nope, they didn't win it all. I'm not going. No, I think it's winning is going to help, and certainly getting to the top. It would seem like the jackpot of all jackpots and recruiting and everything else, because it would be, but that doesn't eliminate Michigan from Underwood. At least that's the way I see it. Okay. Guys talking about the media again. Let's talk more recruiting, and that is where Michigan is ranked here currently today. Remember, Michigan's got 26 commits. They have now dropped in rivals team rankings to the number 5 team in the country. Everybody was excited and thinking about the chances of getting Aaron Scott Jr., and then that didn't happen. And now the next one is Bayer, who is this week is going to be coming down and making his decision between Michigan and Boise, and then he's going on a 2-year hiatus from college football, and so he won't be ready until 26. So Michigan wants him. Michigan would love to see that wide receiver commit to the Wolverines, but that is what is next when it comes down to recruiting and to keep an eye on it. So there it is. That's it. And how it's going. We'll take a couple last on the feedback. Jason says there's a complete lack of institutional control at Georgia. 14 speeding and reckless driving since January, and the death of a player and staff member. It appears that nobody cares, including the coach and in college. Well, here's the thing. Like, what happened with the drag racing after the championship and the party and everything with a staff member getting killed is terrible. Does that mean that it reflects badly on the coach and Georgia as a whole? It does because everything kind of goes back there, and then players continue to speed and reckless driving. That does reflect on the coach and the program. But what are you going to do? You're going to say, well, I mean, if Kirby Smart was in the car with these guys and they were, getting tagged for speeding, I mean, as a coach, you can go out there and say, look, don't speed. And if your players go out there and speed, it doesn't mean that you have a lack of institutional control. It means your players don't care about you. They don't listen to you. But could there be a rule in college like, hey, if you get a traffic violation, then you're going to get suspended? Or if you get so many traffic violations on your team or so many points that there should be a suspension for I mean, what are you going to do? That reflects poorly, on the Georgia football team. But let's go back to it. Do fans care ultimately when you've won 2 consecutive national championships that you've had reckless and speeding tickets? No, they don't. No, nobody cares about that. Or if they do, they say, hey, you guys be safe. I mean, like, only what can you do? I don't have that answer about what can you do. Should the coach suspend him for, Huckabuck State for the first game? I'm not really sure how they're going to do that. Here's Anwar, who says, good afternoon. What's up, Anwar? I'm not sure what this means. We need corners more than anything. I think Michigan will get some corners in this recruiting class, and if they don't, they'll come back and they'll be very active in the transfer portal. Is being a half hour behind in the chat so hard to ask the hosts? Well, let me ask you this, Rob. How many podcasts do you watch where they read any of the feedback? I try to read them all as it's going along. I don't know. Am I a half hour behind? So if I just sit here, let's just read the feedback. I don't know. Like, I just try to do a little bit of both, but I appreciate, I don't know if this is you're trying to be sarcastic or whatever else. And look, I don't know. Maybe there's somebody that sits out there and does a lot better job of reading the feedback and stays in the as it's coming in. I don't know. If this was Michigan, they'd run us into the dirt. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, you can say that, but you don't know that. You would have some selected media, running you through the dirt, but would Michigan players be suspended? Would the coach be suspended if players were driving reckless? And yeah, things are viewed differently. And, it's like, I don't know if it's right when you cross the Mason-Dixon line, but, you get into SEC country. I told you that I have a friend who is a big SEC fan, and I talk with him about cheating and everything else. And he tells me all the time, people that follow SEC football almost all think that the players should have been getting paid for the last 20 years. So they don't care that players were getting paid for the last 20 years. They all feel like they deserve it. And they feel like now that you have NIL, they totally deserve it. And it proves that they were just ahead of the curve on everything. And then if I started to try to say, well, like, Michigan is ethically and they are standing for their principles, he'll say BS. Look at the Big Ten. Penn State had Joe Paterno. Michigan had. Look at what's going on with Northwestern. Why don't you guys, watch what your doctors are doing and just pay the kids and worry about what's going on the field instead of all this horseplay and junk that's going on off the field? That's what an SEC fan will say to you. They don't care what anybody's saying about speeding tickets and paying players. They're like, everybody's driving fast. And this is a $1 billion enterprise. You don't like it? Play the game you're playing and keep getting beat on the field. But that's it. I will take this one from Rob. He likes the show. Thanks, Rob. It's people like you that, really make the show. And Gary. Thank you, Gary. Gary telling me that I do a good job compared to other podcasts reading the feedback. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that. I can't tell you that I knew the answer to that question, so I appreciate the feedback. Okay, so practice on Wednesday. So guess what? We will be talking about practice. We don't have the games. That'll be a month from Wednesday, but we do have practice, and that's where we'll be on Wednesday. Coming up later on today over on the Maize and Blue Review on the Den. Same thing tomorrow, all day, all night over on the Den until Wednesday at 1 o'clock for those of you. Thanks for those 5-star reviews. If you're listening to the podcast, the thumbs up if you're watching the YouTube, all those things, they're all appreciated. Feedback, comments, it's all, man. Thank you. Let's get to this college football season. It's going to be a tremendous one. And I say I can't wait. I'm trying to stay present. I'm really going to enjoy this last day of July. I think barbecue should be. I'm going to do a better job than that recruit with that little naked hot dog that he had. Let's do it. I'm not blowing a gasket. Unless I ordered up some barbecue and I brought a plate out like that kid with a couple, chicken fingers and a lame-looking dog, I'd be like, that I would blow a gasket on. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.